Diablo 2 comes around, that one's beautiful. And the way they do that game is fantastic. But we're going to kind of continue forward. So you get the Lost Vikings 2. I'm not super familiar with the Lost Vikings franchise. I know the gameplay, and I know generally what it is, and that you can switch between these characters, and it's more or less...
Didn't it tank, no?
Yeah, Lost Vikings...
I remember reading, like, I saw the graphics, and I saw the gameplay, and I was like, oh, I mean, it looks of the time, and then I couldn't remember if it tanked or not.
Well, the big thing with Blizzard is that Blizzard really kind of competes in markets that are not saturated. And the Lost Vikings was a 2D scroller. At the time, you would have been competing with Mario and Metroid, and you're really fighting an uphill battle into that genre. And Blizzard traditionally does not compete well with other massive companies. And people are going to be like, "Whoa, yeah!" Okay, just here, you know.
Why do you think that is, though? Let John speak. Everyone shut up. Let John speak.
They're like, my comments are ready!
They can't hear you over the tip-tapping of the keyboard. But yeah, why do you think that?
Well, we're gonna go forward, because I'm gonna get to that idea.
Hold that thought, everybody.
We're gonna hold that thought.
Move on, then.
Yes, we're gonna get there. Because I don't think at this point it was as big a deal.
Right.
Because when you look at Warcraft, Orcs and Humans, it was competing with Command and Conquer, it was competing with a couple other things. Starcraft and Starcraft Brood War, 1998 is where Blizzard walks up and slaps its cock on the table, and it's like, guys, by the way, just, you know, and they're like, wait, no, but we don't want this game, and you're like, shh.
Just close your eyes and let it happen.
Yeah, just close your eyes and let it happen. And they destroy the real-time strategy market. I mean, absolutely.
In a good way?
In a good way.
There
like,
we go.
any competitor that was against them just died.
Yeah, let me just say that I don't know a lot about StarCraft at all, actually. I know that it's a real-time strategy, and that's about it. So that's why I'm curious as to whether or not it did well or not.
Well, StarCraft, to give you kind of the idea, is that in Korea, it sold 1 million copies.
Right.
In South Korea.
Well, things do well in Korea, though.
They didn't before this.
Oh.
Right. Like, South Korea was... To put it to you this way, I believe the sales were 1.5 million worldwide. 1 million in South Korea. This game sold so well and was such a big thing that when the Shuttle Discovery went into space, they took a copy of StarCraft on it. I mean, StarCraft was huge, and this is what catapulted Blizzard forward, right? They just, you know, because Warcraft, Orcs, and Humans, that's great, you know, whatever. And then in 1996, they attempted to release StarCraft, and they had something put together, and then more or less what happened was it was too similar to Orcs and Humans, and there were other games at the time, like Command and Conquer and stuff, that could have competed with it. So they said, fuck it, we're going to reskin the whole thing, pull it all back to the basics, and then put out this story. Now, StarCraft, ironically enough, as great as this game is, gameplay-wise...
Oh, here we go.
This is where they start to fall apart in their story department, right? And you only see bits of it. Because, okay, first things first with StarCraft, you got 3 races. You got the Zerg, the Terran, the Protoss. Terrans are humans, Zergs are these bug race, and Protoss are these religious Templar, right? Well, yeah, they're called...
The race.
Yeah, the race, right. Their literal basic unit is known as a Zealot, then a Dragoon, then a Corsair. It's all named after medieval implements of war and off of that kind of... religious zealotry. They're kind of these blue-skinned people, so on and so forth. This is where, when Orcs and Humans existed, there was definitely a hint at Lord of the Rings, and a hint at Warhammer.
You mean like...
Okay, there's a little...
Like a reskin of Lord of the Rings? Or like a you can hear the tearing sound from here?
No, not that. Like, more like I see that they might have taken a couple little sprinkles here and there, right? Okay, a little bit of the aesthetics borrowed. StarCraft, it's like blatant. I mean, the Zerg are the Tyranid, right? And the founders of the company have admitted, we love Warhammer. We play Warhammer all the time. Our races, so with the Tyranid, they're a race controlled by the hive mind. They're this race of bugs. They go and they devour planets, and they evolve to survive based on what opponents they fight. So the Zerg are this bug race under what's called the Overmind that take over planets and evolve based on what opponents they're facing to survive.
Right.
And so you had the popularity of the Alien movies at the time, and you had the Tyranid.
Just pop culture in general.
Right. And so what you saw with the Zerg was like, oh, look, they've taken Ridley Scott and they've taken the Tyranid and they've just smashed them together.
Now kiss.
Right, and just that's what happened.
Right.
And you can go into it and do the research. I mean, even down to the names like Overlords and Leviathans and, the Overmind and Hivemind. Even their, jargon is similar.
Mm-hmm.
With the Protoss, they're a copy of the Eldar. The Eldar are a race from Warhammer 40k. The Eldar use webway gates to teleport around. They're a psychic race. They use invisibility to fight, and they have a faction of them called the Dark Eldar, which have broken off from the main Eldar.
Mm-hmm.
The Protoss use warp gates to get around, invisibility to fight, have mind powers and connections to one another, and have a race called the Dark Templar, who are broken off from them. And so when you look at the generals, and of course I can go into major details with it, but if you look at the general layout of the races, you can see, okay, these are the Tyranid, and these are the Eldar. They're just reskinned. The humans from Warhammer 40k are interesting, because while the Eldar were not Crusaders, the humans from Warhammer are.
Mm-hmm.
So you get that concept of the crusading portion of the Protoss from the humans in Warhammer. And so what you get with the humans instead in Starcraft is they're rednecks. They're just rednecks, you want a piece of me, boy, you know what I mean?
Well, didn't we watch something like that a couple weeks ago?
Right.
You were showing me?
And you got to see a little bit of those cinematics and stuff.
Don't worry, I saw.
Yeah, they're very, very stereotypical. And what ended up happening with this game too, oddly enough, is that, like I said, they attempted to release a game in '96.
Right.
So a lot of what happened with the cinematics was the cinematics were being produced for a game that they didn't use. And so you'll see a lot of these cinematics, and when I was younger, I always thought it was weird. They have a cinematic with this redneck dude, just driving a truck,
Mm-hmm.
and he runs into a Zergling, which is like a small Zerg unit. And then he gets out of the truck, and then they have all these Zerg around him, and they swarm him. And it's at the beginning of a mission, and I was like, what the heck is that? Why show this random redneck dude? Well, what it was that they actually put the cinematics before the story that they were making.
Right.
So they just said, well, just kind of fit it. Okay, there's a Zerg attack on a human base. Use that truck guy. They actually have certain shots that are complete reskins from the movie Alien. Right, where you have the lighting.
It's a little more than an homage, is it?
Right, well you have some Marines, they walk into a base, they have a fan going at the top of the room, you have lights going down, you can't quite see what the enemy is,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's this flash jump, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's the Alien shot, right? And so what I think is just so interesting about StarCraft particularly is that StarCraft is the first time you saw them. Now granted, StarCraft's story is fine, it's still interesting, but you saw a couple of things where they said, hey, our gameplay's really good. Maybe our story isn't that important. Maybe we don't really need to redo the cinematics. Maybe we don't really need to make them connect to the missions. And people bought it up. And so Blizzard, I think what they said was, hey, guys, maybe with StarCraft, maybe that's okay. And I don't know, of course, that's a lot of headcanon. I'm not sure.
Speculation.
That's speculation. So when you see StarCraft and you see StarCraft Brood War, they still have great characters. They still have a great storyline. You have Kerrigan, who's this ghost, which is a Terran unit.
Mm-hmm.
She's a psychic. She ends up getting taken by the Zerg and infested, but she's mentally strong enough to resist the Overmind.
Oh.
So she
Convenient.
becomes what's known as the Queen of Blades. She leads the Zerg.
Inconvenient.
Things don't go well from there. But yeah, she becomes kind of this hive mother for the Zerg. And it's this really fascinating story because Jimmy Raynor, who of course is a Terran protagonist, they have a thing going. She becomes the Queen of Blades. He still kind of wants to reach out to her, but she's smart and conniving, and now that she has this power and she's kind of been corrupted a little bit, she's more or less really tricky. And what's so great about the games is that she goes, once the Overmind, because the Overmind gets killed in the games,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Well, way to ruin it for me.
Well, yeah, it's 1998, spoiler
John,
alert.
give me some time.
Yeah. Anyway, so the Overmind gets killed in the games, and she takes over for the Zerg, but what she ends up doing is oh, well, the Overmind made me evil. I'm not really evil. But then totally is, and so it's this very canaille, kind of character that you want to be good,
Very
you want to redeem
mischievous,
her.
but
Right, but she's this mischievous little fuck.
underlying evil.
Right. And so, then in 1999, you get Warcraft 2 released, and with Battle.net, you get Starcraft with Battle.net. Now, of course, that happens on Starcraft's release, and Battle.net allows you to play against each other online, and so then people just shit their pants. They're like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. And things just keep going great for them.